Hi, this is Vladimir Štimac from Anadolu Efes. You're listening Sweet 16, best podcast out there.
Real bounced back in El Clasico. Another big familiar face is on his way back to EuroLeague, maybe. And we've got a double round week all ahead of us. It's all coming up on the next episode of Sweet 16 right now. Tune in.
Hello and welcome to Sweet 16, an open look on EuroLeague basketball. Boy, it's been one hell of a week. Great EuroLeague action as always, but we first gotta hit it off by saying hi guys, hi Emmett, hi Aris. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Moshe. Went to my last game of the calendar year last night out in UCD, and we had a nice sort of charity thing for it in the Irish League. So all ticket proceeds, about 300 people there, went towards a Christmas Day dinner for charity. So great night and a lovely way to finish off my calendar year in basketball.
And hello from Athens. I'm just back from Piraeus, where Olympiacos had a pretty good game against Lavrio, and it seems that the year will end with a bang, no matter how we can put it one way or the another. This is going to be a big week.
Yeah, ours is just spot on there. It's no matter what happens on the floor this week, it's a huge week in action. Not only is it a double round week, but obviously major coaching moves either way at Efes, with obviously a single player move involved in that as well, even though we're still not entirely certain of what's happening there. One notable injury, which is going to definitely affect the next couple of rounds, even though it's only a short-term one, and just an awful lot to get through, as well as the persistent Sweet 16 jinx. So we've got a oodles to get onto. So, as ever, the wonderfully, super accurately named 4-minute warning.
4 minutes to get through all the action that just happened in EuroLeague. It's the 4-minute warning.
So, we have a new member of the 4-in-a-row loss club, Milano. Not exactly a shocking member of it, to be honest, considering the way they've been performing this season. Possibly more of a surprise that, hey, they're back in it again. But another team about to join them by the way they're playing, Barcelona, lost El Clasico against the Real Madrid team, which was in bad need of a big W, and Real got that big W. Moshe, you're the man who sort of has coined sort of the Club 4. You're looking at sort of this, Barca could be playing anyone in the next round, and you kind of have money then to lose, really, don't you?
I guess so. I really guess so. The thing is with them, we've got a couple of teams that we really, or even more than a couple, that we're not so sure which performance we're about to get from them. Though there was somewhat of a consistency with Barcelona so far. But first let's hit it off with Milan. They've gotten Andrew Gallagher back, and they've got Curtis Jarrells. They have Darius Bertans, but you look at the three-point column, and you see that they've had only 13 three-point attempts. Now, when you have such shooters, that means that something is not working on the offensive end. I mean, first of all, I really got to give the credit for Panathinaikos. They were playing at the Oaxaca, so you would expect somewhat of a shot limitation. The power will limit in a way Milan, but to the point where they only made 13 attempts, that says something big, especially when they're supposed to be very gifted at the perimeter. Now they've made it 4-0, so yeah, we were wondering, when and if is it going to happen. In a way, they've just, they've managed to escape it last time after beating Barcelona at the beginning of the season. And Barcelona also managed to escape it one time. A few good rounds ago. But lo and behold, Barcelona are just one loss away of getting there. Now, some teams have shown resiliency, like Baskonia, the way that they've bounced back, which was, it's admirable. But you look at Barcelona and you really ask yourself, do they have what it takes to get a win? I mean, true, they will be facing Malaga at the next game, but, Ari said it more than once, when two teams from the same country face each other in the EuroLeague, you do not, you cannot really predict what's going to happen. You can only guess in a way. But, I'm really surprised with Barcelona because on paper, they got in the El Clasico a team that's very much injured, a team that's fighting, for pretty much for existence in a way, because no one really expected to see Madrid going 5-6, 11 games into the EuroLeague, especially with so many injuries. And Madrid pretty much managed to dominate the entire game. Sometimes Barcelona were much closer, sometimes they were, really trailing behind, but you never really got the vibe that, Barcelona are actually threatening Madrid's dominance in that game.
Yeah, and before we get to ours, I suppose the one thing to say with this is if you were to get somebody to play in that sort of trying to break a losing streak, right now Malaga might be the side because they look sort of mentally like they might even be checking out already. Like ours, do you reckon sort of it's the right team for Barca to get before Christmas? Malaga at home.
I don't want to sound, let's say, prejudiced against Barcelona, but I have pretty much loosened all hope for them. It will be something, they will need a miracle in order to save the season. They just lost to Gran Canaria at home for the Spanish league. They have a real issue with the roles in the team. For no reason apparently, Sasha Venzekov is not in the team, and that really doesn't make much sense. Something else must have happened in order to explain that. And at this point, there are 4 teams in total that are not performing the way we would expect before the season. Or 5 if you count Milan among them. It's Barcelona and of course Anadolu Efes, who were supposed to be locked in the contention for the top 8 places. They have the material to be in the Final Four. And on the other hand, you have Zalgiris Kaunas and Zvezda Zvezda, who have demonstrated an amazing resilience. And if Zvezda is just overachieving from not being in the bottom, Zalgiris is an admiral team. I believe that we will delve into that later. But at this point, I really don't know what is happening in Barcelona. And while the easy victim in such situation is always the coach, I really don't know if there is after all a fault in the system, because it's the second straight season that Barcelona is underperforming, and this year they don't even have the excuse of the injuries. They are pretty healthy, and that doesn't change a lot to the way the team plays and competes. I will say Malaga. Because at least Malaga, within their limitations and with the issues that they have when Nedovic is not performing, they play what they have planned and what they want to play. I don't think that that's the case with Barcelona. I'm not following closely the situation, and I'm not an expert in order to say what can be the case, not only from what we see on the court, but also around the team, because clearly something is already derailed. So I don't have at this point any confidence on Barcelona about anything. It's a pretty hard statement, but I feel that way. If a team can suicide every week or be the candidate for the most stupid defeat, that team will be Barcelona. Yes, Anadolu Efes has one less win, but at least Anadolu Efes in every game, or at least in most of their games, they put on a fight. Barcelona hasn't even done that. Well, I don't know what to say.
I can say that if I'm Sasha Vesnikov, I'm leaving this team. I mean, the guy truly deserves more than that. I mean, he got there like, what, 2 seasons ago? This is his 3rd year in his contract. The guy came as a prospect after finishing, I think, as one of the top, if not the top scorer in the Greek league. We're talking a power forward who's very gifted offensively. We're talking a guy who signed a long-term deal with the club, which mean between all the switches they've made in the GM position, they have a diamond within their hands. Now, if he's not thriving, ask yourself why. And I'm not sure that's the case, because he was somewhat of one of the good things that Barcelona had last year. And you see what happens the way they've dealt with Tyrese Rice. You see what they're doing with Vesenkov. And Vesenkov, he signed a 4-year deal. Again, I'm saying it. A 4-year deal. That's not something, that's so, easily thought of. That means that he was a long-term project, and he's got, 1 year left in it? Honestly, if I'm him, I'm like, literally, I would even consider asking for a transfer this year to move to another team.
It's crazy what's happening with Barcelona. Vesenkov and Rice, you're totally right, are great examples of that. Efes, for all sort of the complaints we have about them, at least when they're making a call, they make it quick. And of course, the quick call was Perazovic. After that loss to Baskonia, he's gone. So is Ido Muric, who statistically, despite not featuring that much, was actually a big positive for Efes on the floor. Like, their numbers in terms of offensive and defensive rating when Muric was on the floor was actually good, but Muric is no longer going to be with the club. And the talk, of course, is the return to EuroLeague of Ergin Ataman, the former Galatasaray, former multiple team coach, and of course former Turkish national side coach. I suppose, Moshe, if we sort of look at it from both perspectives, Perasovic, I think no matter what happens to him, anyway through the rest of the year, he'll get paid the rest of his contract naturally at some point. But whoever gets him next is probably getting a pretty good coach. He had a bad run overall with Efes, despite getting them their first ever road playoff win in EuroLeague, which they'd never managed before in the playoff era. But from his Turkish league performances, from his 2 seasons in EuroLeague, not a huge shock he's gone. But yeah, I think he's going to be okay. But I suppose you look at him and you look at the Ataman option. I suppose with Ataman as well, if assuming that's confirmed, he's sort of the safe option because he knows the league, he knows the players, and you can also dump him at the end of the year if you've got a better option.
It's more complicated, it's like a Facebook status, it's complicated. The thing is, first of all, Perasovic is probably one of the only relics left from that great Jugoplastica team from Split, if I remember correctly, that we can actually, we managed to see on the basketball court. And obviously not as a player, but as a coach nowadays, because, yeah, you would have to be a phenom to actually pull something like that off. But in all seriousness, I honestly wished for Coach Perasovic to do better. I really think he's a good coach. And the fact that, not a lot of people talking about it, but for example, last year, Efes were trying to, maybe let's put it on the table. They were trying to waive both Hertel and Granger. If if it was really the case, that was what we were all kind of, the vibe that everyone was getting, and they ended up staying. And in all that, uncertainties, Efes had an amazing run versus the entire season eventually, because if you look at the bottom line, the way they were performing, getting to Olympiacos and losing in a 5th game, to miss the Final Four by not so much, that was impressive in a way. This season for Efes, from the get-go, things were off, because I never, for example, I can say for myself, I never really understood what was their basketball vision. In a way, it looks like that they are missing Thomas Hertel and Granger right now badly. That's for starters. Now, whether Ataman is the perfect option, I'll surprise you. I'm really fond of him. I'm really fond of Coach Ataman for a few reasons, because he's I think his brand is crisis management. Because you look at his days with Galatasaray, he's been through hell and back when Galatasaray had the financial issues. and he managed to keep that club with his head above water. You saw a coach that in a season where the financial issue struck, he went on and played with, he had a 6 players rotation at one point in a game versus Fenerbahce in the Turkish league, and actually ended up winning that game. So in a way, in the crisis that Anadolu are experiencing, the coach they've gotten is very good, I think, for the job. I am, however, it really pains me to see, that Coach Perasovic, that he has this stain from this season, because it was worth much more. Now, from the get-go, I didn't expect this team to do great things, because, like I said, I really didn't understand what was going on there when you look at the roster, because you can only gamble in so many positions after a good season. It's not like when you look at Maccabi that they failed miserably and they had to replace it all pretty much. This team, by choice, started from scratch in a way. And you cannot gamble with so many players, especially when you don't really have a vision that was clearly not there. So, that's like my that's my intake on this situation. Ataman is it was, I think, probably the best decision they could have made, all things considered, with the fact that they had to part ways with Coach Perasovic. Is it going to solve the problem if they're not going to make any roster changes? Probably not.
And Aris, your thoughts on the switcheroo at Efes?
I agree on that with Moshe. Yes, Ataman is great at crisis management. And I'm not sure that you are entirely wrong, Emmett, when you say that maybe Ataman will not be a long-term solution. But on the other hand, I'm not really sad about Coach Perasovic, because I'm sure that Coach Perasovic will find very soon a new job in Spain, because he's highly regarded in one of the best basketball countries of Europe, and in the first big opening, Perasovic will be a natural candidate to take over a high-profile job. And I'm also sad. I am really sad about Anadolu Efes, because they are one of the good guys. They have a limited fan base. They love the sport of basketball. They are not a branch of a multi-sports club. They are just a basketball team. They are making a huge effort in order to get some kind of fan base, and they really hasn't created a solid one, especially compared to the fan bases of Fenerbahce, Galatasaray, or even Besiktas. And they need to catch a break. And they have done almost everything right. They have signed Duda Ivkovic, and Duda Ivkovic produced a solid core of young Turkish players who left for the NBA, Sedi Osman and Furkan Korkmaz. And then they trusted their team to Coach Perasovic, who also tried to build upon what was already created by Coach Ivkovic, and he had to make adjustments when Korkmaz and Sedi Osman left for the NBA. And one of the main issues of Turkish basketball is that there are simply not so many good Turkish players playing in Turkey currently. If you watch, let's say, the national team roster, you will understand that most of the really good players are playing either in the NBA or in some cases not currently, but in the past they have strived in other countries around Europe. Now this is not the case because of the money spent in Turkey. I believe that the Efes needs a really good season and needs to build upon the recent legacy. They have the personnel to turn things around. There is Derek Brown, there is Brian Dunston, there is Eric McCallum, there is Ricky Ledo, who is underperforming compared to what it was expected from him. But it's also natural because this is his first year in the level of the EuroLeague. They have some pretty good players, and maybe Ataman as a motivator can be the man that will turn things around. I really hope that for Anadolu Efes.
Yeah, I'm thinking as well, like one of the options they're going to be looking at in the off season, probably if they go short term with Ataman, which isn't a guarantee by any stretch, might be Ufuk Sarika, who's sort of been a guy who's good at getting the best out of guys around, even though strategically he can definitely be open to questioning, but his sort of asset is being sort of a player's coach. Moving on to an issue which was highlighted by us all pre-call, we will be talking about the big story injury, which is only a short-term one in our next section, but Moshe, injuries are a story just period right now, and interesting stuff in your local media on that front.
Yeah, we really got to give it to the guy. His name is Arale Weisberg. He's working for Walla. And, he went on and, he checked pretty much every team and the amount of absences, the number of absences that they've had and of how many players were injured. And the numbers are simply astonishing. You've had teams where you see, where you say to yourself, oh my God, they really need to catch a break. But then someone else goes on and break, sadly. And it's, teams, we kind of expected it to happen because there was a lot of, it just the schedule and everything, with the national teams and, things that you've been taking from previous seasons. And sometimes, the body doesn't really recover the best way. And sometimes you simply have bad luck, because whenever you land awkwardly, that's bad luck. Whenever you break an organ, that's probably related to bad luck, I guess. But, it's like we're seeing, I think that's why, and this is why I'm going to mention Maccabi, I think, for the better on this one. Since Coach Spacha's arrival, they are literally measuring the minutes, trying not to let anyone go past, I don't want to, say the 25-minute mark or something like that. Besides that, I really got to give, credit for Arale. He's a colleague of mine. He's a good friend, full disclosure. But, it was like an eye-opening read to see this. And obviously also, I would like to give the credit for our crew in Eurohoops that also managed to, they've pretty much translated to everyone else to read it in English as well. So, Aris, from here, thank you also.
You don't have to thank me because Aral is a great colleague and also a great friend of mine. So, thank you, Aral, for getting the job done. And what I want to add is that the real issue here is not so much minor injuries. It's because in Europe, in most cases, 2 games per week and a full recovery time, sometimes getting injured was not such a big deal. I think that where you can, the point where you can judge who is lucky and who is unlucky is the major injuries. And on that front, you have, let's say, Olympiacos and, of course, Real Madrid. And you had last season Barcelona, because they have lost key personnel. Olympiacos at this point has lost 2 of his 3 power forwards. You can be prepared in order to face such a situation. There is Printezis, there is Tili, and there is also Agravanis. And Tili will be back hopefully on February or March, and Agravanis is losing the season. And you have Printezis again playing almost alone with the help of Wilger, who is just adapting in the European game, and other forwards like Papanikolaou and Papapetru trying to pick up the slack and some minutes. You have Real Madrid losing Ayon, losing first of all Kuzmic, then losing Ayon, and then losing Radulf. you have seen sometimes roster being wiped out by injuries. That's the real issue. I'm not saying that losing Derek Brown for a month is not a big deal for Anadolu Efes, because it is. But in the big picture, the question is what are you going to do in Europe when you are losing so many players on the same position, or when you are losing a star? If you are playing in the NBA, you have the luxury to say that if my star is injured, then the season is lost and we will prepare for the next one. In Europe, this doesn't apply. A lost season may have extreme ramifications. And unfortunately, that's why losing a player hurts so much.
I think that maybe it's inevitable to say that two-way contracts here in Europe might save the day. And when I'm saying two-way contracts, I'm not obviously saying G League, because Europe doesn't have some sort of a G League. What I do mean is, like, signing players simply for the EuroLeague with the option of, the option for the team to guarantee also the contract domestically, therefore, trying to obtain all limitations possible when we're talking foreigner rules and other, other issues that might occur during the season.
Pretty much this is happening in Turkey, because in the local league only 6 players are allowed to play, and most big teams have more players who are used. Some of them are used regularly in Europe, and they have to make a rotation between them in the domestic league. But the problem is also that this is a limited market, and losing has a cost in everything. How can Panathinaikos find a replacement, let's say, even a temporary one, for Kalafis? It's not possible. There are very few high-level players who are available in Europe, and when you have your star hurt, then let's say if Panathinaikos, due to the absence of Kalafis, doesn't make it this week, these results may have ramification for the rest of the season. So it's kind of crazy, and it's also part of the game, but it's also a food for thought on the way that you should build a team. Of course, losing a star can hurt you badly, and that applies to every sport. But you can't put, let's say, all your chips just to one star. You have to have a solid team.
Yeah, and the limitations, we've seen it I suppose almost more and more as this new format of EuroLeague has become the case to be, with the sort of the 16 best together, in that the war for talent, so to speak, has really ramped up. And even the richest teams aren't immune, because there is that thinness, I suppose, really overall in terms of what the options are that are available. While you still have several teams in EuroLeague who obviously are EuroLeague level budgets, but can effectively keep one or two players out of the market because they're the one or two guys who might be EuroLeague level, but they're the superstar in that team versus the second option, the sixth option, the eighth option. And obviously financially that's a different situation depending on the side. And I'm almost afraid that was our last topic before the next one, because we just talked about people getting broken, and then our next topic, Moshe, is the Sweet 16 jinx. I mean, we could have ordered this a little safer, is all I'm saying.
In my wildest dreams, I did not imagine that we would have that we would have such big responsibility on our hands. And the thing with Olympiacos losing to Bamberg away after being up by double digits, Zvezda miraculous comeback versus Valencia. Honestly, I'm beginning to be afraid of this. It's like every player that we discuss, on the Scouts Notebook, is pretty much expected to have somewhat of an okay game at best for the next game day. If we're talking Zvezda, all the other teams should be aware. I don't want to elaborate even more because I honestly don't know where it's going to lead us to next.
I wouldn't be so dramatic in any case. I believe that we are mostly right in our predictions. If we were totally right, we will be rich by betting. And we have also mentioned that Olympiacos has never won at Bamberg. And I think that this has to do more with the mentality of Olympiacos and how they close the game badly and not with our jinx. I will agree that maybe we have underestimated Zvezda, but that goes for all Europe, so I really don't feel bad about it.
Like Bamberg doing it against Oli, and again in the way they did it, it's at this stage, honestly, you're starting to wonder, could an Irish second division side wearing Bamberg jerseys get a win over Olympiacos if it's in Bamberg? I don't think there's just a way for Oli to get a win there right now. It's just pure jinxful for them in that place. And that does finish us up neatly on this section. And we are going to move on now to a timeout with Kevin Pangos.
Hi, my name is Kevin Pangos from Zalgiris, and you're listening to Sweet 16. Favorite color, blue. Favorite sport, basketball. Favorite thing to do in my spare time is probably travel. Favorite food is everything. Favorite random hobby is playing guitar. Favorite TV show, Game of Thrones. Favorite snack, cereal. All right.
And that was Kevin Pangos talking to Moshe a couple of weeks back for this show. And now it's time to move on to the Scouts Notebook, where we are at the French Resistance aux Alliances. 3 players who are worth talking about. 2 players who are worth talking about. Nando De Colo and Vincent Poirier. I'm going to take on Poirier here, boys, because the end of that Baskonia Efes game, like, now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't playoff style basketball, but it was desperation style basketball. Y'all could see that these sides knew a loss at this stage of the season was really, really unconscionable. There was desperation on the floor really through those last half quarters, so to speak. Poirier, of course, ended up being the man in the position to sort of... He had a pretty good game, just to be clear. He'd been impressing on the floor, looking really like sort of, he knew his role, which is what jumped out. But, like, there was a bit of a gut check moment for him at the end. Down 1, going to the free throw line. He'd only been up to the free throw line once before in that game. He had 2 shots, missed them both. Goes with 2 here, knowing 1 gets a tie, 2 gets a probable W. Got them both, and Baskonia sneak away from Istanbul with the W. Poirier just really gut check performance from him in that game, got to be said. Like, we saw a couple of, good performances overall from Baskonia, but we saw sort of, the head and Poirier just really just stand up really there. And I suppose Aris, another Frenchman who impressed last week, in a surprise to roughly no one, Nando De Colo with another good game. He's almost in a situation now of, like, he needs to really just set off some crazy numbers for him to actually hit the talk that'll surprise us really with Nando.
Yes, and it seems so natural for him to play at this level that nobody is surprised. You expect that De Colo will do that. And the fact that he's still doing it in a loaded team, because the only player with a better indirect rating than him is Luka Doncic, who has to do a lot by himself because of the players missing from Real Madrid. You see De Colo being not only a guy with a full stats line, but one of the most efficient players around in the league. What I would really like to see from Nando De Colo, and that may be what CSKA wants from him to see, is to really make his teammates better. I believe that that's the last thing that separates Nando De Colo from Milos Teodosic and also from Sergio Rodriguez, his teammate. Don't get me wrong, Nando De Colo is an amazing player and also an amazing passer, but he plays on a team that works for him. He doesn't make things happen for the rest of the team. The team sets up Nando De Colo in order to be such an amazing player. Of course, you have to give him credit for being so efficient, but I think that's the only chink in his armor, and what should be his goal in order to get to the next level, not only for CSKA Moscow, but maybe also in order to be the bona fide leader of the French national team.
And Moshe, I've got to ask you to take this last one out of our trio for this week. Not a Frenchman, but a man we talk about a lot. Alexis Shved, I'm going to give the good number, and then you're going to explain why it's the bad number. Alexis Shved made 5 3-pointers against Unicaja. Now take it from there.
Yeah, he made 5. That's good, all right. Out of 17. 1-7. Yes, we've talked that Milan took 13 3-point attempts. An entire team took 13 3-point attempts. Listen, even if you're a gunner, you must have some sort of an awareness. Self-awareness, meaning, okay, so I've missed 3 shots, 4 shots, 5 shots. Take it down by a notch, Because then, I'll let you in a little secret. If the defender that's defending you sees that you're missing a shot after a shot after a shot, he's going to gamble on you on defense, meaning he's going to go under a screen, meaning he can go and help on some other, maybe mismatch created by a switch. I mean, come on, that's just like killing your own team. I know that you're the guy, but even the guy is expected to lead sometimes. Now, that's what I have to say about the 17 3-point attempts. About Vincent Poirier, Emmett, he swished those 2 free throws, my friend. Swished them. That for me is like much more than anything else. And about Nando, buddy, you're not getting paid enough. I'm sorry for what you've been doing so far this season. And I only partially agree with Aris because I do think that CSKA in the last 5-6 games without him, I'm not so sure that they would have won those games. We are forgetting that Nando, by definition, is not a point guard. He should not be playing the point. And in my humble opinion, he kind of stepped up his game in that aspect. Because, true that versus Maccabi, I think that was one of the only times where we saw consistency from the entire CSKA backcourt. And that is something that they would love to build upon for the rest of the season.
And that's 3 bits of, good news, I suppose. The one other player we got to talk about, it's more scouting life without him, and that is Nick Calathes. Obviously, Calathes really had a great performance for Pau this season. Like, you've seen, why people like Nick Calathes, like why I likes it myself, and Moshe and Aris defended him against, the haters back in the day. You don't have to defend him anymore. But Aris, no Nick Calathes for the next 10 days by the looks of it. Definitely missing the next 2 games. That's a big ask for Pau. Like, the Maccabi at home is not going to be an easy one, even in the Oaxaca, without Nick Calathes.
First of all, according to the latest prediction, the 10 days absence might be more than optimistic because Coach Pascual, after today's game in the Greek League, said that so far only the journalists believe that he will be back in 10 days. So those 10 days may easily turn out to be something like a month. And that will be a huge issue for Panathinaikos, without a doubt. Nick Calathes is not just the top passer of the EuroLeague, he's the brains of Panathinaikos. He finally have achieved the status that he was supposed to get into, and he is shooting so far with a respectable percentage, even in the 3-pointers, which have been his main issue in the past. And there is simply no player in the roster of Panathinaikos who can make up for what he brings on the court. I really don't know how Panathinaikos will cover for him. If you look at his numbers, the worst games that he had so far in the season were on the road against CSKA Moscow and against Olympiacos. This is not a coincidence because the strategy of both CSKA and Olympiacos were to limit Calafis so much so they could get the win because they consider him that important. Olympiacos didn't get the win, but Panathinaikos had to pull a rabbit from their hat in order for this to happen. There is really no equal player with Kalafis in the roster of Panathinaikos, and without him producing almost 8 assists per game, I don't know how this will affect the rest of Panathinaikos offense in every aspect. That's the main issue without Kalafis, because if you take Kalafis out of the equation, then you don't have the pick and rolls with Gist and Gabriel, and that may mean that you will not also get the points, the production by Gist and Gabriel. You will have to expect that Singleton will do everything by himself because he is that kind of talent. And you may expect that Casey Rivers will take more shots because that will be the easy way out for the offense. Expect that Rivers will make most of his shots because he can do that. In theory, the player who will be able to complement Kalafis in the roster of Panathinaikos was Lukas Lekavicius, and not so much Marcus Denmont. If you look at the numbers, they are scary. So far, Kalafis has dished 95 assists, and the second best passer of the team is Lekavicius with 19. Then you go to Singleton with 17, and then you have James Gist with 13 and Casey Rivers with 11. There is no offense in Panathinaikos without Kalafis pulling the strings. It will be very interesting to see how the team will adapt, because Pascual, of course, has a backup plan. But what this plan will be and how Panathinaikos will play, it will be more than interesting.
And of course, the fear is that backup plan, well, the fear for those of us who are neutrals, is that backup plan will essentially be, oh god, 51-50 games. Pure freaking defensive grind out basketball. I'm hopeful it's not, but that's always the fear when you lose a creator like that you gotta really conservatize the game plan. But moving on to game plans in a different way, we are moving on now to our next segment. It's time for the coach's playbook. And Moshe, it's an advice section this week, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. Simply because, we decided to go in this direction simply because of the fact that Ataman is probably, perhaps, maybe, assumingly that he is going to be Anadolu's next coach. True, he has EuroLeague experience, but the last 2 seasons EuroLeague is definitely not what it was. Even, this year from last year. So
yeah, I gotta look at it. I kind of go, what's he need to get his head around, I suppose, because he's seen he's seen a lot of stuff like in that gig, and in his various gigs. He's used to not, in fairness though, having a side which, if an option comes to make an adjustment, can actually go at it financially. So, he's got a little bit of room here in that respect because he's used to a bit of a madhouse with Gallo over the years. Efes, he's inheriting a madhouse. We've always been over how he's good at crisis management. I suppose it's a case of now it's time to sort of identify your own cracks, and I suppose it's a case of the management of your alternating styles, because Aris touched on it with the sort of number of foreigners versus number of Turks. Think about it like EuroLeague and the BSL truly are the separate competitions they are. That you've got to think about the game plans for them separately. But again, just get the fundamentals back and also work out how on earth you're going to live without a natural creator, because there's still clearly that issue in terms of performance wise. But basically, it's just go in, be calm, and just try and get the heads up, because right now they are definitely down for Efes, but there's talent there. There are heads who you can get back up, guys who can play ball, and it's a case of just getting them there. Aris, any advice you want to give Ataman, assuming he gets the gig?
What I know from Ataman is that he will never take any advice. He's really headstrong, and maybe this is an asset, considering the situation that he's getting into it. I believe that Ataman is the man for the job. It's already decided, and I think that he will confront his players, because let's face it, Anadolu Efes has the talent to be better. It's a real surprise that so far they were not able to get more wins, and I think that Ataman's way will be to confront them, and it will be interesting to see how the players will react to that approach.
And that neatly leads us on to our final section where, well, it's a double round week, which means it's Sweet 16, Sweet 16. We got 16 games to get through. We'll look at the first half of the week's action first, and then, of course, pick our favorite games out of each of these, and then we'll make our 8 picks. So our 4 games on on Tuesday are Fener Zvezda, Zalgiris Bamberg, Pau Maccabi, Real versus Valencia. Then Wednesday is Khimki versus Efes, Oli versus Sheshka, Milano Baskonia, and Barcelona against Unicaja. I suppose, Moshe, from those 8, game you're finding most interesting, and we'll get to your picks after that.
Emmett, do you know what you just did to me right now?
I do many things to many people which I don't intend. Do tell.
Well, you've just took me back, like, I think, by like over 20 years, I think 25 years, as a kid in a candy shop, and you're telling me just to pick one candy.
Yep, I'm sometimes a terrible person like that. This is probably why it's a good thing I am not a parent.
Come on, you're gonna be a great dad.
Don't jinx me like that. But your game, Moshe, please, and why you're looking forward to it above all of them.
Well, I'll explain. Panathinaikos, Maccabi Tel Aviv, throughout the years, they've provided tremendous performances. Whether it was playoffs, whether it was regular season or Final Fours. On the other hand, we're getting Žalgiris versus Bamberg, the 2 teams that probably will fight it to the bitter end of who makes it to the playoffs and who's not. Maybe they will both make it to the playoffs, who knows? But right now, it feels like it's going to be one of them. And Oli Cheska, what's not to like? I mean, I honestly cannot make my mind on this one. I'll pick one from each day, of course. I'll go with Panathinaikos Maccabi, simply because, in a way, this game is a must-win for Maccabi, because they're gonna face Fener on the next game. So they're 7-5. That was 7-4 the week before. Can easily become 7-7. So they really gotta have this win. So I'm going with this game, and. You know what, as much as I would like to see Olympiacos Cheska, I'm going with Barcelona, because they might actually end up being the recent inductee to the club for straight game losses.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Real Valencia on the first day. Even though Zalgiris Bamberg has probably far more implications, I think it's a case of we're in a rare situation where Real are looking at this week where a double win is plausible, 2-0 record, and if they get that going into Christmas, their health just rockets. So if they can complete the first half of that on Tuesday, I'm going to like that. On Wednesday's games, I'm purely because I got to leave it from a man in Athens. Well, actually, no, not purely. Honestly, it's more to do with the crazy factor. So I was going to just be nice and leave Oli Sheshka, but actually, I want to leave it anyway because Milano Baskonia. Milano, like I was saying, I was afraid they might let us down and not give us an intriguing game in the Oaxaca. They gave us a great one. Like, they lost, of course they lost, but it was still an interesting game. So them and Baskonia, who of course had that desperation W last Friday, like, yeah, that's happily my game from Wednesday next week. Aris, your games from the first half of the week, and then we'll get to our picks, guys.
Well, it's really hard to pick, but the natural choices are Maccabi, Panathinaikos, and Olympiacos CSKA. Still, I may trade Olympiacos on in the game against CSKA because I really want to see the reaction of Anadolu Efes against Kimki. Efes already lost a game with their interim coach in the Turkish league. Kimki, on the other hand, plays without Thomas Robinson. It's an odd choice, but I believe that it's a game that may decide the future of Anadolu Efes, because if they lose again to Kimki, then I don't know if they have the ability to catch up with the rest of the good teams that are making a run towards the playoffs. And after Kimki, they are hosting Olympiacos. So, in theory, if they have to react somewhere, maybe trying to steal the game against Kimki could be easier. But I really, if you said to me that I should watch only one EuroLeague game this week, I really want to see the game between Panathinaikos and Maccabi. Considering that Calates is missing, that Maccabi is playing the way they do right now, and the ambitions of the two teams, this is a must see.
Well, in terms of the picks for this round, I'm going to be pretty bold here. I'm going for 7 home winners. The only road win I'm calling is Maccabi. I think it's the wrong time for Pau to really have to face them this soon into the Calates injury. Like, Pau, of course, haven't lost in a year at home. It's hard to go 15-0 at home, even with full health. They have lost in the playoff, but in regular season, they haven't lost in over a year at home in EuroLeague. Obviously, they dropped 2 to Fener in the playoffs there. But it's really, really hard to go 15-0 at home. I'm going to say, if they're going to go 14-1, this could be the one. I'm going to go Maccabi for the road win, 7 other home wins. Moshe, your picks for the first half of the week.
I'm gonna stir things up, if you don't mind. I'm thinking that Efes might actually have a chance with Himki because they have more than a solid big guy. They have more than Stimats, who I really like this season, and he likes us. So it's a two-way street in a way. But in all seriousness, I'm going Fener, Žalgiris, Maccabi, Madrid, Efes, Olympiacos, Baskonia, and I'm going to induct Barcelona to the club, so Malaga.
A 4-4 split home and road for Moshe there. Aris, how are you calling the first half of the week?
Well, I really don't have many more things to say compared to what you said earlier. I believe that Moshe is kind of bold, and I also agree with him. But the point is that as the season progresses, home games will be more than important. I have also a gut feeling that Unicaja and CSKA are real candidates to get the road wins, and the same can be said about Efes. I expect a really close game between Panathinaikos and Maccabi. And I kind of believe that somehow Panathinaikos, because Maccabi remains a new team, will steal the game. Other than that, yes, I'm totally agreeing with you that you can't bet against the home teams. Maybe Maccabi has the best chance, but I expect a really close game.
And so, looking at the second half of the week, it's we open on Thursday with Zvezda hosting Panathinaikos, Bamberg host Real, Maccabi host Fener, and Valencia hosts Zalgiris. And then Friday, it's Shaska Kimki in the All-Russian derby, Efes Olympiacos, Baskonia versus Barcelona, and Unicaja versus Milano. And I'm going to make my picks in this one first, because I'm going Valencia Zalgiris on Thursday, because it's actually largely based on my picking Zalgiris to win on Tuesday, and that a 2-0 week for Zalgiris at this stage of the season, heading into Christmas, with them looking at serious playoff potential. Like, that would be absolutely monstrous in a good way for them. So if they can go 2-0, if they come off that win at Bamberg, I think Valencia Zalgiris is going to be such a big game to watch, because obviously Valencia, they've got far more things to focus on in Spain right now than EuroLeague as well. That could be huge. My Friday game, if it was 3 years ago, I'd be picking Cesca versus Kimki, but I gotta go for Baskonia Barca, because even if Barcelona beat Unicaja, or whether they lose, they're still going to need a huge display on the road against Baskonia. Like, they got to show an awful lot more sense, an awful lot more character, an awful lot more heart, and frankly, just finding a way to get a W. So I think that game is going to be fascinating to watch. Moshe, what are your picks from Thursday and Friday to watch?
I would like to say Zvezda Panathinaikos, but I would like, you know what, I'm going with Emmett though. In spite of Maccabi Fener being one hell of a game, because Zalgiris' arrivals to Tel Aviv are always interesting and fun to watch. You know, Žalgiris, I think they have yet to win a double round week, because they've used the double round weeks to, you know, maybe mark one game that was maybe easier or more probable for them to get the win, and they ended up getting it. So I'm going with this game, because I would really like to see if Žalgiris can make it 2-0 rather than the 1-1 split. The other, the second game, the second part of the 14th game day, I'm going with Malaga Milan, because this could prove to be the end of one of these teams' season, probably, I would say.
And Aris, your 2 games to watch on Thursday and Friday.
Well, I will watch the game between Anadolu Efes and Olympiacos, because I want to see the new look of Anadolu Efes, and a matchup with Olympiacos will be more than interesting, because they will have to measure and their abilities against one of the top opponents in their league and step up their game if they want to be competitive. And the other game that it will be very, very interesting to see will be the game between Valencia and Zalgiris. It's an odd choice, because there's also Maccabi and Fenerbahce, and that will be more than interesting. And there is also Zvezda against Panathinaikos, which is kind of like the serve version of Olympiacos against Panathinaikos. At least that's what the fans of the two clubs believe. But I want to see Zalgiris playing on the road and being considered the favorite. So far, Zalgiris has an admirable season, but this is the kind of game that Zalgiris must win in order to justify all the fuss that is created around them. And it will be interesting to see how they will play this out. Because against Valencia, a lot of people will give them a real chance to win.
And moving on to our picks for that last set of action this weekend, I think these two days are a little tougher to call. Personally, obviously, we're all disagreeing wildly over the first half of the week, but for my calls, it's a much tougher call to make. I'm going Pau over Zvezda, Real over Bamberg, Maccabi with the home win over Fener, Zalgiris for the road win as possible favourites, Cesca over Kimki, Oli over Efes, Baskonia over Barca, and Unicaja over Milano. So that's about a 4-4 split again for me. So Moshe, how are you calling those 8 games?
Pretty much the same. I think I'm going with you in each and every one of these ones, because I really can't see Kimki and on, you know, especially with their form without Robinson taking Cesca. If they had Robinson, completely different story. But you know what? Hell with it. I'm going with you on each and every one of the picks.
And Aris, your 8 calls for those last 2 rounds of action this week.
I will go with the home teams, and I will try to find the exceptions. The exceptions in this case can be Fenerbahce and Olympiacos. I believe that somehow Bamberg will beat Real Madrid. It will be interesting to see it, but I really believe that Bamberg will beat Real Madrid, and also that Zvezda will get the win against Panathinaikos. Of course, if Panathinaikos is coming off a defeat at Oaxaca, then things will be more than interesting.
Well, Emmett, before I'm gonna leave it to you to take it from here. Here are 2 points, 2 things, 2 topics that we never really neglected, but we really gotta put it on the table. Number one is, we've been talking about Zvezda's, the second coming of Taylor Rochesty, but we cannot overlook what James Fildane has been doing over there, because he's being a monster, and so far he's being unstoppable in scoring, and not just. And the second thing is, well, Barcelona are still paying for Coach Bartzokas. They are paying, what, like 5 million euros with taxes only on the coaching position this year? Is it okay to sit right here, right now, according to their performances, and I'm not judging any one of the coaches or the decision makers, is this season already a failure?
Oh, wow. I think that's one really of a how to even reply to that. It's like, yes, it is. It's unless they somehow find a way to win the Copa del Rey, it's going to be hard to see Barcelona not having another absolute nightmare finish to this season, and all the questions being asked come the summer once again. And so that's it from this side, of course. On a happier note, Christmas is coming, so hopefully Barcelona will have a happy time then. But for me here in Dublin, you can always find me ballineurope.com, at BIU_basketball, and Ball in Europe on YouTube. Boys, bring us home.
And from Athens, from Eurohoops.net, from Eurohoops Dome, from Eurohoops Academy, from our social media, from our portal, and from myself, everyone have a cheerful and happy holiday, no matter in what God you believe on or what you think should happen in the world. Just please be decent. That should be the message. And also, if you don't if you like sports, then please take a look and focus on basketball, because the games will not disappoint you, no matter the level.
And as it is the holidays, it is the time of miracles. It is the time of being happy, the time of celebrating with the families, with our families, and for everyone else. We wish the happiest of times from the entire Sweet 16 crew. You can find me as always at MosesB1, and I am Team Scout on Twitter. The website itself, teamscout.net, and the Facebook page, Team Scout. Now, true that we haven't said it enough throughout the episode, but guys, don't forget to subscribe and follow in all the media outlets that we use. And with that being said, we do have something special in mind for you guys, so you better tune in and #prep up. So till next time.